Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first day of our week-long Tableau Tip Battle. My name's Sophie Sparks. I'm the Community Manager here at the Information Lab, and I'm going to be joining you every day with some of my colleagues to go through these really exciting Tableau Tip Battles. We've got a different theme each day, starting today with formatting tips, then going through a Zen Master Showdown speed tipping with Lorna Brown. You may also know her as Lorna Eden, her unmarried name. We're going to then go speed tipping shortcuts on Wednesday, look at ways to make you viz faster. Thursday is all about data prep, so tips coming from Tableau Prep. And on Friday, we're going to have a tip free for all. Now, I apologize if you hear some crazy background noise. I think definitely like everybody else in the UK and probably lots of other people dialing in to this webinar, working from home and making sure I social distance and self-isolate as much as possible due to coronavirus. So I hope everybody who's joining me is feeling healthy and all your family and friends are well as well. But that does mean I might have some weird background noise from the busy road in London that I face. So apologies for that. So to get us started today, we're going to be going through a Tableau tip battle focusing on formatting tips with two of my fantastic colleagues, Steph Kearns and Michael McFadden. Now, both of these guys, you may or may not know them. I've got their Twitter handles below, Steph Kearns 91 and McVizzies for Michael. They are both from Data School Cohort 7, so they've been together, working together for a very long time, and now they're both part of our core team. They are very serious about data. Here is Steph and here is Michael. As you can see, they take this very seriously. The format today is we're going to start with Steph giving us about half an hour worth of fantastic formatting tips. She's then going to hand over to Michael, who will give us another 30 minutes or so of his formatting best. And at the end, I'll open it up for a vote. I want you guys to vote and let me know whose tips you found the most helpful. And depending whose tips you find the most helpful, they'll be announced the winner of today. I'm going to be on for this entire Tableau tip battle, and I'll be answering any questions you may have in the chat box. So without further ado, Steph, would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. And if you'd like to steal the screen off me, we'll be getting started. Perfect. Okay. Take it away, Steph.
Cool. So I'm going to start with my tips. So the first thing I want to do is I'm using Superstore EU, EU Superstore for anyone who wants to recreate this. I'm going to drag segment onto my view. And I'm going to drag the sales onto columns and create a bar chart. So the first tip I have for you is how to resize this bar chart. So I've got some shortcuts for this. So we might be seeing these again later in the week, but to resize this, I can hold Control and press the up arrow, and it will make my bars fatter, down to make them skinnier. And I can use the same left and right as well to start resizing this bar chart. I can also use Control Shift B, and I'll make the whole thing bigger, and Control B to make it smaller again. So we can start to resize and make the bar chart kind of use up as much space as we're looking to use. I'm actually going to make this entire view. It's my preference at this point. So next thing that I want to do is change the color of these bars. So I want to start to make them branded and fit kind of our brand. So if I click color, I don't get the color palette options here that I'm looking for. I can click more color and I can use this kind of patch in the top right to pick custom colors. So I've actually got the hex code for the color that I want to use for my bar chart. So I'm just posting it in the bottom right. My next tip is that I can save this color. I can click and drag it here. And if I click OK, the next time I go into that menu, that custom color will be saved for me in these custom colors in the bottom left. So I can click and drag the square and drop it in to save it. But better yet, my next tip is that if I undo, come back to blue, if I want to be able to use the full set of my color palette and I don't want to have to go and find the hex code every single time, because that's a bit of a pain. What I can do is click and drag measure names onto my color shelf. And what that will do is then add sales to my color palette using measure names. And now when I click on color and edit colors, I have my full set of color palettes that I can use to color my bars. And I can use that same purple and make my bars the color that I'm looking for and on brand. So the next thing you might find is that when your users are using the dashboard you've created, you've spent ages formatting and making sure things are kind of sorting how it makes sense to help guide your users through using your dashboards. So I don't know how many of you have had this where someone comes to you and they're like, it's broken, the bars are in the wrong order. And it turns out that they've clicked this sort button bottom in your axis, next to your axis title, there's a sort button that people might accidentally click if you're not wanting them to sort it themselves. And you can actually now turn this off so people don't start accidentally sorting anything. So if I come to the menus at the top where it says worksheet, I can click on worksheet and come down to this show sort controls. And if I untick that, then that option is removed and my users are no longer going to be able to accidentally sort this axis. So the next thing I want to do is add some more kind of interactivity for my users on this. So what I'm going to do is add subcategory to filters. I'm going to select them all. And what I want to do is create kind of a more helpful title. So I'm going to say sales by segment before, and I'm going to insert that subcategory into the title. So when I click OK on this, at the moment it's giving me this kind of unhelpful. It's saying accessories, comma, appliances, comma, art, etc. It says and 14 more. That's because I've got, if you see it on the right, I've got all my subcategories selected. If I select one, it will tell me the one category. And when I reselect, it's going to say all. And what I want to kind of tell my user is that actually this is sales by segment, and I want it to say the subcategory if I'm selecting one, and I want it to say multiple subcategories if I'm selecting more than one subcategory. So to do that, what I'm going to do is create a calculated field. If I can type. So what I'm going to do here is going to say if the count distinct of subcategory equals 1, then I want to see that subcategory. So I need to wrap this in an aggregation. Because I've got count distinct here, I'm going to need to aggregate this subcategory. But if there isn't one subcategory, what I want it to say is multiple subcategories. So I'm going to click OK on that, and I'll get a new field in my measures. So I'm going to click and drag that onto detail. So now when I double click and I change this, I'm going to click on subcategory, and I want to change that to use this subcategory title field instead. When I click OK on that, now when I've selected multiple, it says sales by segment for multiple subcategories, but it switches back to telling me which one when I select only one. So that's, again, just to help guide our users through and be kind of a bit clearer about what we're showing them. So I'm going to switch over to Michael now. Actually, we're going to do it in a couple of different chunks. So not quite how Sophie described, but I'm going to switch to him and see what he's got.
Hi, everyone. Just going to wait for Steph to pass that screen over, and then let's have a look.
You can steal it from there.
Yeah. Okay, so now hopefully everyone can hear me and see my screen. So we have a dashboard that I built earlier, a little pre-built dashboard to save us going through building this all out in front of you. So in the top left here, we currently have our sales by category, or sorry, by segment at the moment, but we'll change that to category in just a second. We have our sales by profit in the top right, and we have our sales over time there at the bottom. And what we want to do is remove these grid lines mainly, but there's a lot of formatting here to be done because we've built out these sheets separately and brought them together into a dashboard. But really we want to get rid of a lot of these things, change some of the titles and things like that. So a lot of you will probably go through it one by one. So if I want to just format one sheet, I can right click anywhere in this white space and go to format. And I get loads of options here to change. So the first one, as I said, is to go to my grid lines. And I can go and change my grid lines here under rows to remove them, and they go away. But what we'll notice is if I flip it back to this way, the grid lines remain, despite the fact that when before I changed it, it said none. So one good thing to do is when you're changing these grid lines is to change them for the entire sheet. And despite it saying none here, if you just go in and click none, what you'll see is this bolds. And anything bold under your formatting shows where something has been changed. So now if I flip my dashboard around, there's no grid lines either way, which is probably a good tip in itself, which is this button up here next to the sort will just flip your two axes around. So there's a quick tip that we're using in the middle of the show. So beyond that, if we want to change any titles, we can also do that in here. So if I want to change the headers of my axes, or for this title up here, I can do that here. So if I change my worksheet to say 11, we'll see that this is actually changing these axes here. I can also look at these headers. So everything in the dashboard changes when you change the top one, but if I go and change these separately, if I want to increase those, that will just change the headers here, but it won't change anything in my tooltip. You can also right click on these and clear. So if at any point you have done a lot of formatting, you can either search through and find anything that's bold. So if I want to clear this header here, I can do that, and that will just clear the one. Or if I've got lots of things, I can clear down here, and that will clear for everything in my worksheet. But going through one worksheet at a time can take a long time. So another option, if I undo some of that formatting quickly, let's say I change these headers here, and we'll make them say Comic Sans, just because it's easier to see. And I'll increase the size a little bit so that we can see that is definitely Comic Sans there. Not that I would ever use that in a dashboard. There's another tip: don't use Comic Sans in a dashboard. So now that we've updated this sheet and we've changed the headers of this axis, what we'll see is we can go into this sheet and they're not changed. So one thing that we can do is right click on my sales by segment and category, and I can copy formatting. And that will take any formatting that we've changed in this window through to our second dashboard, or second worksheet in the dashboard. So now we've got Comic Sans on this bar chart, we've got Comic Sans here, but we've also removed those grid lines from the back of this sheet as well. And then if we have a look at this one, we now need to do the same. So if you've got loads and loads of sheets and you don't want to be changing everything, what you can do is actually format the entire workbook in one go. So if we go to our Format tab, you'll see here we get the option to format the dashboard. So that will just format any worksheet that's currently contained within this dashboard. Or we can format the entire workbook itself. And what this does is gives us the similar options to what we've seen already. So we can format everything. So if we have a font that we want to use across everything. So let me just try Arial to change everything quickly. Hopefully I get that option. There we go. And we can see now all of the changes that I made just to the font has changed to Arial throughout my entire workbook. And then if we want to change things like the worksheet titles, so maybe we want to make those a little bit smaller and maybe bold them, we can do that here. We can also update the dashboard title as well. So in fact, maybe we want that to be a slightly bit bigger, and maybe a different color. There we go. So you can make all these changes, and what this will do is carry through now to any sheets that I update. The final thing I want to do here is to make sure that none of my dashboards have grid lines, so I can change that here under grid lines. Obviously, if you do want grid lines throughout your dashboard, you can update them there to be formatted however you like, so make them thinner or change the color, whatever it is that you want to do. So at this stage, we've done some formatting to our dashboard. We've changed everything to Arial, changed the color of the title. If I now go and create a new sheet, what we'll see is the worksheet title is already preset to be that Arial 10 in bold that I set it to. And if we go and bring in our, say, segment and our, let's say, sales, all of that formatting is remained. And if I just use Steph's tip from earlier to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see, we can see there's no grid line. So now anything that I build going forward will carry that formatting through. The last tip that I have here is that your formatting with regards to your pill or your formatting in regards to your headers is stuck here on your pill. So if I format that quickly and make that different, so say I want this to be size 14 and I want to make it purple, I want to make it Comic Sans as well, just so that it's easier to see. If I now bring in my category as a field, it changes it back to the default formatting for my dashboard. So this may not be something we want to do. We've deliberately gone through and updated this formatting. So I've just undone that. What we can do is just double click on this pill and replace segment with category and hit enter. And what that does is it's keeping the same pill, but it's updating the field that was within that pill, and therefore it will keep that formatting for us. So that can come in handy, especially when you've already formatted your entire dashboard and then you've updated one or two sheets that maybe you want a slightly different look or feel to, and then you want to start moving new fields in there. You can do that in that way. So in terms of tips for my first section, in terms of formatting a dashboard, that'll be it. I think Steph's going to take over again now and talk you through some more of hers, and then I'll be back shortly.
So I'm just going to share my screen again. Cool. So my next tip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a subcategory onto the view, and I'm going to drag my sales, and I'll just sort that and make this entire view. So then what I'm going to do is drag profit on as well, and I'm going to hover over the axis. I get those two little rulers, and that will give me these measure names, measure values. So I'm just going to move measure names to columns. So now what I've got is split by my subcategories, and I've got my two measures here on columns. And I can see what measure values I have on my view here on this measure values card. So I'm just going to swap them round. Next, I also want to add my quantity to my view, so I can see my sales, profit and quantity for each subcategory. So next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold Control and drag measure values onto color. Just to add a bit more context to my view, but what's happening here is that I get really dark blue for my sales, so this is kind of all the high numbers, and you can see in the top right I've got my measure values color legend. My quantity is always going to be this washed out grey orangey, I don't really even know what that color is, but it's always going to be this washed out color, and my sales are always going to be really dark blue because the disparity between these numbers isn't going to give me a great color range. So actually what I want to do is be able to have a separate color legend for each of my different measures that are on this view. So the way that I can do that is by clicking on measure values, and I can click use separate legends. And then what that will do is give me 3 separate color legends for each of my 3 measures on this view. So the next set of tips that I want to show you, I'm going to kind of start with one chart and we're going to build on it a little bit. So I'm going to start with a very similar thing. So I'm going to drag subcategory onto my view. And this time what I want to drag on, I've got 2019 and 2018 sales. So I'll just edit this and show you what that looks like. So I just want to show what the sales are in 2019, and then the other one's similar with 2018. So I'm going to drag my 2019 sales on and sort them. So now what I want to be able to do is compare that directly to 2018. So I'm just going to drag 2018 onto detail. I'm going to come to my analytics pane in the top left and drag on some reference lines. I'm going to drop them on cell. So I get the reference line menu here, and I want to change that to show 2018 sales. And I'm just going to reformat these a little bit and make them a bit bolder so we can see them a bit more clearly. I'm going to click OK on that. So now I'm getting an idea of which subcategories, how subcategories are performing in 2019 and whether it's better than 2018 or not. But this doesn't really stand out that much at the moment. I can see with a bit of work that envelopes is the only one that's not doing as well in 2019 as it did in 2018. So what I'm going to do is create a new calculated field. Say whether it's above or below last year. So there's a few different calculations that you can use to show this kind of thing. In this instance, what I'm going to do is say where the sum of my sales in 2019 minus the sum of my sales in 2018 is greater than 0. So is that difference more or less than 0? I click OK on that, and this field's going to be true or false. So now I get this new field in my measures in the left-hand pane, and it says true or false. So if I add that to color, it then is a lot easier to see instantly which kind of are above or below 2019. I'm actually just going to swap these round. So the bulk are blue, and we've got this one poorly performing category that's subcategory that's going to stick out. So now I've got a better idea, but actually if I hover over, I've got these tooltips and I can start to format my tooltips so they're a bit more useful. But what I want to be able to do is make this really jump out and make it really clear what that blue and orange is telling me, and help the user understand what I'm using color to mean here. So to do this, I want to create another couple of calculations. So I'm going to create a calculated field, and I'm going to create one that says above. So I want if, just zoom in a little bit. So if this above below field is true, then above end. And here, because I'm not using else in this statement, anything that doesn't satisfy this condition here, it's just going to come through as null. So if I click OK on that, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to right click on this new above field that appears, and I'm going to click duplicate. And then I can edit this new field, and I'm going to change this to show the opposite. So I'm going to change the name to below. I'm going to change true to false, and I'm going to change this to below and click OK. So now I'm going to click on above, hold Control, click below. I'm going to put these both on detail. So at the moment, you can see when I hover over a bar, you can see it says below and it's blank. It's not showing anything. And above is coming through as above for the bars that 2019 sales were above 2018 sales. And then if I hover over envelopes, it's doing the opposite. So below says below and above is blank. So then I'm going to click on tooltip on my marks card, and I'm going to start formatting my tooltips. So what I would say is I would recommend formatting your tooltips as the last thing you do, because if you then make any changes to your worksheets, it's not going to update the tooltips necessarily. So it's a good practice to kind of leave this till last. So what do I want my tooltips to say? I want to say sales can't spell. So sales for the subcategory were this in 2019, which was, and then what I'm going to do is put above my above field, and I'm going to instantly put my below field next to it. So they're side by side here. 2018 sales of, so sales for my subcategory were this in 2019, which was above or below the sales of 2018 of this value here. So what I'm going to do as well, so what I now want to do is format these two fields to match what they look like in here, so we get that conditional formatting in our tooltips. So I've clicked on the above field. So I learned this one while prepping for this actually. A couple of my tips I actually learned for the session. This one I really like. So I used to highlight the whole field that I wanted to format and then change it. So I'll just do this as an example. So for above, make it blue, I'm going to make it bold. So I've like highlighted it to make the whole format the whole thing, but actually you can just click on the field and you see it's highlighting the whole thing. So now I don't actually need to highlight the whole thing at all. So I can just click in the field, and then when I click on color and make it bold, it's actually changing the whole field for me, and I don't have to highlight it at all. So thank you to Lorna for teaching me that one. I think that's great. So if I now click OK on this, when I hover over my fields, I've formatted my tooltip, and it includes that conditional formatting to help guide our users through. So I'm happy with this chart now, and what I want to start doing is adding charts to a dashboard. So if I create a new dashboard, I'm a tiler at heart, so what I would just do is click and drag it onto the view, and it's going to start giving me a tiled dashboard. But I know a lot of people prefer floating, so you can, in the bottom left, you switch between the two, but actually you can switch once you've started dragging. So if I drag it on, it's going to drop this kind of as a tiled view in the whole dashboard. But if I decide actually, once I've started creating this, I want to switch to floating, what I can do, if I just press my shift key, you'll see it pop out and it will swap to a floating object on my dashboard. So I don't have to get rid of things, remember to switch, and then drag it on. I can just use that shift key to switch between tiled and floating. So as a little example now, if I pick it back up and hold shift, it will switch back to floating, and I can pick it up again and hold shift, so tiled, sorry, I can pick it up again, hold shift, and it will switch back to floating. So I'm just going to get rid of my color legend for now, and I can make this any size I want now, it's floating. But actually those pixel nudges amongst us, I'm definitely one of those. I like to be picky about how my dashboards look. So I can move this object around using my arrow keys on my keyboard and move it around and nudge it, and I can resize it. But actually what I really like to do is kind of have a grid behind this and know exactly the size that this is. So what I can do, I'm just going to press G on my keyboard, and it will bring up this grid in the back of my dashboard, and then I can start lining it up exactly with the grid, and I can start counting those squares and being really particular about how this looks. And I can just switch them off again using that G key. So my last tip actually for the session before I hand back to Michael to see if he can beat me, I'm on my dashboard and I formatted my tooltips. I'm kind of happy with how they look, but actually I don't think it's particularly clear. Those numbers aren't jumping out at me, and I want to make that tooltip even clearer for my users. So what I might be tempted to do is go back to my sheet and click on tooltip, and carry on editing it in here. But if I've got loads of sheets on my dashboard, that's going to be a massive pain to have to like navigate to the sheet, go into the tooltip, come back and then reassess how it looks on the dashboard. But actually, I don't have to go back to the sheet at all. If I click on this sheet on the dashboard and come to my worksheet menu at the top, I can come down to tooltip. If I click on that, I get that tooltip menu up within the dashboard. So I don't have to go flicking back and forward. So then I can start to make this a little clearer for my users. I'm going to use that tip from earlier where I'm just clicking on a field rather than highlighting the full thing. Just going to make some stuff jump out. I'm going to include my numbers in that as well. So now when I click OK, my tooltip is reformatted without having to go back to the sheet at all. And that is the tip that I'm going to leave you on. Back to you, Michael.
Cool. Cheers, Steph. So I'm just going to share my screen again. I've got quite a few things to go through here. So we should have plenty of time looking at the time, but let's see. Okay, so if we start with, so the first thing I'm just going to show very, very quickly is sometimes when you're building out a dashboard, you may have your, let's say we have date or any discrete variable here on your axes, and then you'll have your sales here. So sometimes you've got your axes set up like this, but actually what you want is your axes for this date here to be at the top for some reason. So maybe it's just the formatting, maybe you're for some reason doing your bars going downwards, or whichever way you want to do it. The way most people would do this is to create a dual axis, but that becomes very difficult when you've got discrete variables. So what you can do is if you go to analysis, down to table layout, and then into advanced, let's move that across. We have this option here to show innermost level at bottom of view. So if we just untick this and hit apply, what we'll see is our axis actually jumps to the top, and that will work on any discrete variable that you have. So there are plenty of use cases for this, and I know it's probably something that people have dealt with quite a lot. So it's good to get in there to this very relatively hidden option and move those to the top where needed. So the next few things I'm going to show are all related to Zen tooltips. But what I'm going to do first, which isn't strictly formatting, is show you the kind of thing that you would want to replace with a Zen tooltip. And also that may give you an additional bit of functionality there that you can use in the future as well, if you weren't going to go down the Zen tooltip route. So if we just build out a very basic bar chart again, so I'll bring my category into rows, I'll bring my sales into columns, make that entire view, and just use my category as the color. And then, so I've got this dashboard, and now maybe I want to see my furniture, but I want to see that split by subcategories. So I only want to see the furniture related subcategories or the office supplies related subcategories. One thing that I can do that I use quite a lot is to build out a dashboard that will allow you to drill down and hide that. So to do that, you would just create a second dashboard. And in this case, it's going to be the same, but subcategory on our rows and sales on our columns. And we'll have category on color so that it remains, or it keeps that color in a second when we draw through. And so what we have here is all of our subcategories colored by those categories. So the next step is to put these into a dashboard. So for those of you that are familiar with containers, you can create additional, so you can drag in a sheet and it will come in and it will snap by default, as we can see. But what you can do is create these containers, and then the behavior of your dashboards will change slightly. So what we're going to do first of all is bring in a vertical container. And what that's going to do, as the picture sort of hints at, is place one dashboard on top of another. My first hint for using these when formatting is to use a blank. So the blanks will allow a bit of a placeholder there, and sometimes it can make it much easier to place a dashboard into your view. So I usually will put a blank straight in to my my vertical container. I can see that this is the blank because it's got a gray border, But if I double click on this tab here at the top, it will then show me the container that it's within. So this now goes blue and I'm now selecting my container. So we can see that there. If I bring in my category and make sure that that goes in above, so I've got my container here now and I have my sheet, what we can see is we can now bring in subcategory, and it just makes it a little bit easier to squeeze that in. Sometimes when you're trying to get this option here at the bottom to put it into the container at the bottom, there's these 3 different spaces, so it can be quite difficult. So having that blank there just makes it much easier. You can see as I move the mouse around, there's a lot more space to put that in. And after you do that, you can just remove the blank once you've got everything within the container that you need. So for now, we have our categories here at the top. We have our subcategories here at the bottom. Big filters where you select that and it will update below, which is excellent. But what we can do is have these disappear. So if we take that off again, and we go to dashboard and actions. If we add a filter action, this is essentially the long way round of building out exactly what we've just seen. So this is when you select this option here in the quick filter, what it will do is it will create one of these dashboard actions for you. So what we need to do is have category selected here at the top, because that's the item that we're going to be selecting. We want to make sure select is our run action on, because we want to do our action when we select it. We then want to select our target sheet, which is the sheet that's going to be updated, and that'll be our subcategory down here at the bottom. And then finally, what we want to do is exclude all values. So this means that when we unselect or deselect an option on our category sheet, all of these options go away. And because these are both in one container, this will collapse down. So if I select exclude all values here and hit OK and hit OK, I can now select furniture and it will show me my furniture. But if I select furniture again, this dashboard disappears. So it allows us to flick between these, but also creates more space for a new dashboard. And with a bit of practice, you can have these cascading. So if you were to select this, you could then select something and have it appear here. But as we can see, this quickly eats into our dashboard space. And so the next few tips are all around Visin tooltips and how you would make them look nice and clean and potentially fit an entire dashboard into a Visin tooltip. So let me just jump back to this worksheet where I've got some built so we don't have to watch me build a lot of things. And once again, we're going to go with category and sales. Okay, so if we just make that a little bit larger, again, using Steph's tip from earlier, so control up, we have our furniture. And what we can do is create another one. So I'm just going to quickly call this category. And we can duplicate this very quickly, call this subcategory. And then, okay. So now we want this one to be entire view, and we'll sort that. So now when I go back to my category tab, I can go into my tooltip, and what I get, similarly to what Steph was showing earlier, where you can bring in a field, you can also insert a sheet. So here we have a list of all the sheets that I've created, and the one we're looking for is subcategory. And when I hit OK, we get that view of that dashboard being filtered by what I hover over. So the next tip beyond that is that you can actually edit this. So we'll see here, we've brought in the sheet name subcategory, and the width and the height and the filter are already set. So we can actually edit these figures within this link. So if I want to make this a little bit wider, I can edit this width and say 600. And now when I hover, you see that it's a little bit bigger. So we can actually adjust the size of the entire tooltip by doing this. But this is pretty much what we had earlier with the dashboard actions that I showed. So what I've done is I've created a few other sheets here. So we've got the top 10 states by sales. We've got the top 10 states by profit. And I can bring these also into my tooltip. So we can bring in as many as we like. So if I bring in my state by profit, and I bring in my state by sales. And what we need to do is, if I just click OK, it's going to place one on top of the other. So it quickly, again, becomes quite difficult to follow. But if we just remove this enter that it's put in by default, it will place them side by side. And now by hovering over again, we can see that it's actually formatted a lot better. So we can almost build an entire dashboard within this Vision tooltip. And that can be very handy sometimes when we're trying to squeeze a lot of information in, or we're getting a lot of requests for lots of different drill downs. Sometimes a very quick tooltip can help. The final bit of formatting on this is that in addition to being able to build this dashboard, we can actually add a bit more formatting in terms of lines and breaks like we would on a normal dashboard. So in this case, what we've done is we've just created a blank sheet. And if I go to format, and I go to my row divider, I've set my row dividers here to be this thick black line. And now simply by placing this as a sheet within my tooltip on my category, in between those options, so if I just put an enter there, and I find that line, and I just want to change that height to be much smaller because it's only the line that I'm looking for, and I want to make sure the width is the right width to stretch across the full breadth of my tooltip. And now when I hit OK, we have this line separating the dashboard. So by using combinations of these things, we can start to build out much better looking dashboards and vizzes and tooltips and things in general. So that's all on terms of the tooltips and the vizzes in tooltips. So the final thing that we're going to show both Steph and I, this is our last tip, is something that you're probably relatively familiar with and probably come across quite a lot if you're using Tableau currently in your organization. And hopefully this will save you hours and hours of time. So that will get me the win when you're voting in a minute.
It is a big finish.
So we built out a dashboard here. It's very basic. So all we've got is we've got Superstore data, and I've just created a new field with a sales target. So if the sales are greater than 120,000, then I want it to be green. Otherwise, I want it to be gray. And this is really just to replicate the kind of dashboard that you might have built. And often what you'll have is a dashboard with maybe 50 sheets on it. You may have more, you may have less, but what happens is when you then want to replace a data set, so if I go in here, I can add in a new data source by selecting the plus up here. And I'm just going to bring in Superstore again. And now this new Superstore data set that I've brought in doesn't have this calculated field that I've created. Tableau do give you some good functionality in that you can right click on the data source and you can replace the data source. So this is an additional tip if anyone's counting. And by doing that, you will replace the entire data source. And it will give you, it will bring through any calculated fields that you've used. So if I hit OK, what we'll see is the color changes, but it has brought through this sales line field. So it is still working, but it does become a pain because now all of our company recognized colors and formatting has disappeared. And this will happen across your entire workbook for any anything that you bring through. So rather than going through and recoloring everything, there is a way around this. So if I just undo what I've just done, which is to bring that, replace that data source, what I can do is if you just copy any field, so if I copy this, and you can control click, so if I had multiple calculated fields in here that I wanted to bring through, I could control click those. And if you just copy that and paste it into your new data source, where's paste? That is now there in my new data source. And then if I replace the references or the data source, we'll see it's now changed to number 2, but the colors have remained the same. So that will save hopefully hours and hours of time and also get you guys to vote on me when Sophie brings through the Kahoot now-ish. So if Sophie, you're ready, that is us done. Sophie?
The suspense.
I think am I double muted now? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
you're
We
okay
can
now.
hear you.
Yeah,
I was extra careful and muted myself twice.
nice.
So there we go, on my headset and on my laptop. Perfect. Okay, so thank you guys both very much for that and showing us all those tips. I tried to keep tally of them all, but I think I'll have to go back and watch the video again and get all the tips together. So everyone who has joined, thank you so much. We've got a Kahoot tip voting system. So if you, I'm putting the link into the YouTube stream now. If you can, it's a huge link. Go ahead and click on the link I've just shared in the tips. You'll be able to tell me and play the game. You'll be able to tell me who you think is the the best tips for the day. Hopefully this works. Ready to join Kahoot? I'll also put the pin number in so you guys can try joining Kahoot with that pin number as well. It should be open for about a minute, so let me know if you're able to join. And while that's happening, I will tell you a bit about what's happening with us tomorrow. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. So tomorrow we've got our second day of tipping. This is with Lorna Brown. Lorna, one of my favorite colleagues and recent Tableau Zen master. You may know her as Lorna Eden. She's famous for being one of the Tableau Workout Wednesday co-creators. She's one of the Tableau Tuesday tips, along with Andy Kriebel. She's done speed tipping sessions at previous Tableau conferences, and she's also the Midlands User Group Tableau co-host here in the UK. So she's going to be taking us through some slightly more advanced tips. I'm not sure how Zen level they will get, but knowing Lorna, there'll be a good mix. So that's tomorrow at 11 a.m. So slightly earlier time. So everyone, that's 11 a.m. here in the UK, 12, so lunchtime, midday if you're dialing in from continental Europe. So I do hope you're able to join us for that one. I'm just going to pause my share for a second and jump back in and see how our poll is going there. So it says waiting for players. Oh no, so if you are unable to vote, please type into the chat on YouTube and let me know. Looks like I'm having some issues with our Kahoot account. Perfect, so I'll give you guys another moment or two to try and head, for me to try and fix this Kahoot up. Oh, we've got some people voting. Brilliant. Okay.
Just adding to the suspense, Sophie.
Just adding to the general suspense.
Just trying to protect Steph from the landslide victory. It's okay, you can say.
Well, I have tallied up who I thought had the most tips. So if I don't seem to be able to get Kahoot working perfectly, then we will just go with my tip tally. Oh no, some people aren't able to vote. This is frustrating. I've got too many things open.
We could just put a comment, name the comment, Name in the
Yeah,
comments.
okay, guys. If you're having
Clapometer
trouble,
style.
yeah, if you're having trouble getting into the Kahoot, I'm very sorry. Looks like I've managed to set that up slightly incorrectly. If you can't vote, then just type into the comments who you think was better, Steph, Mike, or both. I'm a very fair person. I find it very hard to decide who is better. So please just type into the comments and we'll do an old-fashioned quick tally this way. Steph and Michael, between the two of you, who do you think got through the most tips this afternoon?
I'd say Steph probably got through the quantity.
Michael, you sounded like you're talking from inside a bubble.
Oh, sorry. How's that?
Better.
Clearer.
Yes, I would say Steph probably got the most quantity.
I agree. I think I put in the most tips for her, though that sneaky tip you put in at the end did help bump you up. Doesn't count. You guys were quite even though in the number of tips. I'll have to go back and watch the video because I'm pretty sure I missed one or two, or maybe combined a few that would be put down as as separate ones. We've got lots of people voting through now, just writing their names in. Looks like lots of other people are saying both. So I thought both you guys' tips were fantastic as well. We've got Tim who's saying +1 for Steph. Sorry, Mike, already done lots with Viz and tooltips, so it's not much new for them. So Michael, looks like Viz and tooltips is old hat for some people who've dialed in. Perfect. So it looks like people are leaning, the few people who are going Team Steph or Team Mike are going Team Steph.
Oh, yeah.
So there we go. I'll give you guys another moment or two to type into the chat box who you think won, and but looks like Steph, you are coming out on top. So just while we give everyone another moment or so to type in. Finally.
Official. I've been battling with Michael for years, and now it's
been waiting for that win.
It's official. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Steph and Michael, how hard do you guys find formatting? It's something I know we don't cover as much as a specific set of skills that you need in Tableau, but how hard did you find learning how to format?
I find the general formatting okay. So I think you pick up the general formatting in Tableau quite quickly. What becomes difficult is when you get very niche requests that you then have to try and find slight workarounds or tips for. That's sometimes where it becomes a little bit more difficult, but
it can be a bit faffy, but when you get used to the menus and kind of learn tips from other people and kind of pick up kind of other formatting that some people use, it gets a lot easier with a bit of practice, and once you become familiar with those menus. So
yeah, you move away from just ticking all the boxes and you know which one you're looking for. That makes a big difference.
Perfect. Okay, so Steph, you are the official winner.
Yes.
And I've got a request for both of you. If you're able to share your workbooks with me, this video will be going live on our YouTube channel, the Information Lab YouTube channel, later on this afternoon. I'm going to edit the start of the video just to make sure it starts when you guys actually start tipping and not ages beforehand. And I'll also do my best to go through all the tips and tag them. So everybody, I've just dropped into the chat box our Information Lab YouTube channel, or just Google YouTube Information Lab. It will be going up later on tonight, but Steph and Mike, if you could send me your workbook or put them on Tableau Public, on your own Tableau Public account. Let me know which one you prefer, but I'll be able to drop that in to the on our YouTube channel as well, so people will be able to download your workbook and watch you guys build these tips and then back solve if they miss any of them. Is that possible?
Yeah, I can send that across to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, thanks for that. Thank you for everyone who's joined our first day of our week-long Tableau Tip Battle. Tomorrow we have Lorna Brown coming up with Zen level tipping. On Wednesday, we've got looking at tips to help you speed tip, all the Tableau shortcuts and everything else you might need to know about speed tipping in Tableau. On Thursday, we're going to be going through with Tableau prep. I know data prep is not everyone's idea of a sexy or important thing, but it is so essential to doing any analysis, and there are lots of tips around it. And finally, on Friday, we've got a tipping free-for-all. So we've got 2 colleagues coming through who will be taking us through different types of tipping tricks, everything from geospatial through to everything that isn't formatting, speed tipping, Zen level tips, or Tableau prep. So please join us every day. And this, I will promise I will get the Kahoot voting to work for tomorrow. Thank you so much, and hope you guys have a lovely afternoon. Thanks.